When will some of you realise that Murad Morelli is not an ally? He is a bandwagon jumper. Those of you who really think he's an advocate for black women are delusional. He is where the coin resides. Hashtag Toya Talks. Welcome to Tuesday's episode of the Toya Talks podcast. It's yours truly, Toya Washington. Each and every Tuesday, brand new episode, and this Tuesday is no different. Whew. So obviously, the opening quote, some of you must think I'm choosing violence or that I'm on crud. I ain't on crud. I've just taken a healthy dose of the truth serum. And those of you who have followed me on social media, I've spoken out about Murad kind of jumping on this bandwagon, and he needs to stay out of our business. Like, he always in our business. But I'm going to talk about that a little later because it kind of ties into this episode and what this episode is about. I also want to thank each and every one of you for your support on last week's episode, Workplace Shakedown. You are your own advocate. You guys love the episode, as you have done all the other episodes, but this episode, you guys definitely showed up, listened, downloaded, and the numbers are speaking for themselves, honey. Can I get a click, click, click? But no, seriously, I just want to thank each and every one of you, and all for my new listeners as well. Like, I see you, baby, and all you returning listeners, you know it's all love. So I've got a couple of topics to talk about, a few things to talk about before we get into the real meat of this episode. And funny enough, I never thought I was going to say this because I didn't think this was going to happen. However, again, if you're on my Instagram, follow me on Instagram. I'm very active, Toya_Washington, and I am active, especially on stories, more so on the weekends. And I did tell you guys that I'm vlogging, and I'm sharing a lot of stuff on the vlog about the whole NHS experience and things that I'm going through right now. And I recently changed doctors, changed hospitals, because you can actually choose the hospital you want to treat you if you have something or you suspect something. And you don't necessarily have to have a doctor's surgery near where you live. Whereas the rules have changed, because it hasn't always been that way. But it has changed, and I'm so blessed to have known this and have basically changed doctors, because my old doctor was shit. Pile of shit. You would get test results and they won't even give you them for like another 6 months. You'll call them up and they always want to beef with you. I don't understand what is wrong with doctors, administrators, because I guess all of our experiences are the same, right? Because I stay ready watching on TikTok, and every day is violence. You'll call them up, they're like, hello, get money, that's a surgery. You'll be like, oh, can I book an appointment? Why do you want to book an appointment? I want to get some blood test. Why do you want to book a blood test? Because I think, but it's not you that has to diagnose it, it's the doctor. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to book an appointment. It's always violence. Since I changed doctors, it's not that way. And I definitely think that whilst I understand that the pandemic has placed an enormous pressure on the NHS, access to medical care, access to any type of medicine, especially in the UK for black women, isn't always straightforward. We're gaslit, there is medical racism. We are not afforded the same medical protections and provisions that our white counterparts are, and that's just it. You know, I have spoken about it previously in a podcast, but I'm not going to kind of go too deep into it. But there is something that I did want to quickly say. So I recently went to the doctors for something, and my doctor ordered some blood works, and the results came back for what she was testing for, and she was like, oh, everything is fine, like no issues. And well, she called me today and said that, and she goes, however, something else came up on your blood work. And I was like, sorry ma'am. She said yes, and I would like a repeat test, like you to get a repeat test, and I'm gonna ask them to kind of, you know, look at your blood like on a microscope. And she asked me a couple of questions, and all I could do was just thank her, because for years, and I mean for years, I know that something hasn't been right. And anytime I've tried to access healthcare, I have been made to feel as though I'm exaggerating or it's attributed to XYZ. Whereas I haven't had blood tests in over 5 years. So I already know, like, you are only seeing half of the story. My doctor ordering blood work is, as far as she said, is part of procedure, right? And she said that she looked on my file and I hadn't had a blood test for over 5 years. So for her, it's like, okay, well, how can we discount certain things unless we've seen some of your blood work? Now, what she tested for came back perfect, but there were other things that were thrown up, and she was asking me various questions like, I'm constantly tired, I'm constantly, I will drive somewhere. Maybe it's early in the morning. Maybe I'm there for 2 hours. I'm tired. I'm like, what? I'm able to drive back fine. But once I get home, that's it. I'm wiped out. It's like a running joke as well. Toya is like a sleeping beauty. Girl, how many hours a day can someone sleep? I'm even having siestas during the week. I mean, girl, I'm asleep more than I'm awake. Shit is happening and I don't even know unless you guys send me DMs. Like, that's not a way to live. But all jokes aside, I wanted to come here and just quickly mention this because no one knows your body better than you. No one. And as Black women, we understand medical discrimination. We understand that the discrimination in medicine is a threat to our lives. And I'm telling you, as a patient, you have more power than you know. You have more power. You have the right to change doctors, and it may be a doctor that's not in the vicinity of where you live. You have the right to nominate a hospital that you want to be treated at. Maybe you have a condition and a particular hospital specializes in that condition. You have every right to be transferred, and you can put it in writing. PALS is an opportunity for you to make a formal complaint. It's centered around patients and making complaints about the medical care that you have received. Hospitals do not like complaints to PALS because also it puts them under the microscope. And there's a whole list of other things as well. But I'm so grateful to sit here and say that I'm getting ever closer to getting a diagnosis of what is actually going on with me. And I'm so happy that I am a strong person. I am healthy. I'm not a sickly person. I suffer from migraines, and that's about it. And I'm anemic. That's about it. But there is something else happening and going on, and my doctor believes me. And I think it's just the ability to be seen. And I said it to my doctor, thank you for seeing me. Thank you for hearing me. And thank you for taking notice of me. And she was so lovely. I even said, God bless her. She said, God bless back to me, which was lovely. And it's the fact that she rang me after 6 o'clock. It's the fact that she will request certain things. It's the fact that she goes over and be above because she is invested in getting me answers. And I definitely think that there are medical professionals that are not invested in getting us answers. They're invested in ticking us off the list. They're invested in operating and opening us up and fucking us up. And I definitely feel that you need to be in charge and in the forefront of the medical care you receive. Yes, I get it. Not everybody can go private. I haven't gone private because I know how much taxes I pay. I know how much corporation tax I pay. I know how much personal income tax I pay. Do you understand? So do you know what? Of everything I pay, that is private healthcare to me. Okay? But I definitely think that if I had found that this doctor wasn't good, I would have ended up going private. And it probably would have been really, really expensive. But to get to the bottom of whatever it is, I needed to do that. And I want to reassure everyone that I am fine. I am just very well aware that not everything is the way it should be, but I have an amazing doctor and I'm getting to the bottom of it. And when I find out what it is, I hope that I'm in a position to share it, especially because I feel like it will help other Black women, but also as well, I definitely think as Black women, we have a lot of things that people don't talk about enough. So they talk about COVID, they talk about vaccines, but they're not talking about vitamin D deficiencies. They're not talking about vitamin C deficiencies. They're not talking about B12 deficiencies. They're not talking about lack of iron. They're not talking about certain things as Black people that we need in our bodies that we can't get naturally or we can't get because of our genetic makeup. Do you understand? So I just wanted to say that, and I hope that this message goes to who it needs to be heard, because I definitely feel that we have a tendency to bury our heads out of fear, out of experience, out of past trauma. But you have to choose life, and in choosing life you have to choose what type of life you want to lead. I can't live a life where I'm half asleep for most of the time and everything's passing me by. Before I know it, it's 2025 and a bitch has been sleeping for 2 years. No, I'm joking. And when I say bitch, I'm not saying literal. Come on, like, lighthearted, okay? Anywho, so I want to talk a little bit about something that happened last week, and it will lend itself to the rest of the podcast quite seamlessly. So I got a phone call from someone, and the person was really excited, and they're like, Toya, oh my god, BBC are launching, they've launched this thing where they want to have new podcasts or existing podcasts on their platform. They're willing to pay, and they're going to pay for marketing. This is an amazing opportunity for you and for Toya Talks, and I definitely think that this is something that you need. This is something that could literally catapult your podcast. And she sent me the link and everything, and she was just speaking really, really fast, bombarding me. And I was grateful, at least, you know, she thought of me. But when she said what she said, I was like, okay, well, I don't really fuck with the BBC. I don't really do that. But I know Auntie June Sarpong works for the BBC or consults for them. So I was open to doing my own research. So as I was doing my own research, I was on Clubhouse, and a lot of the time I just sit on Clubhouse and just listen. And as I was on Clubhouse, there was a room that popped up, and in the title it was like BBC podcasters needed or something. So as I was in the room, I was listening, and you could hear there was like some people who don't have podcasts, maybe some people who have just launched a podcast. And I kind of felt like, okay, well, I have as far as I'm concerned, I've got a successful podcast, right? In less than 1 year of the conception of this podcast, I was number 19 on the Apple Podcast career section. That was 6 months into the podcast. Do you understand? My highest ranking has been number 18. And I recently charted, like I chart all the time, like 30, 15, like I chart all the time, especially in the career section and the business section where my podcast sits within Apple Podcasts. With Spotify, I don't really know until the end of the year, because they don't really rank it in a way that is accessible for podcasters like me to be able to access. But I get to see the back end. I know my download numbers. I know that this is an international podcast. I know that my core audience are black women, because this podcast is for who? Us, black women. And I definitely know that there are a lot of people that listen to the podcast that don't reach out to me, that listen. And I definitely recognize how the podcast has built over the last year. And you know, it's 1.5 years old, so almost 2 years old. And I'm doing numbers that would take a new podcast a couple of years to do. So I definitely know where I see my podcast. I definitely know the feedback and the emails that I get, the lives that it's transforming, the success stories, everything that I've heard that has been as a result of this podcast. So I know where I see it, and I respect that it has been a gift to be able to share my experiences, share your experiences, teach and provide you with the tools to navigate the world of work and life. So for me, it's like, okay, I've got a phone call, I'm in this Clubhouse room, and I thought to myself, okay, let me just do the research. So I went online, I had a look at it, and if you guys want to see it, it's still on there. I mean, there may be people that are not bothered about the BBC, their practices, how they behave, and you want to have a podcast on there. Listen, I'm not judging you. I just know that for me, it's so important to remain my authentic self. It's important for me to have the freedom of creativity, and we created the Toya Talks podcast, so I'm not going to sign away my rights. I'm not going to give exclusivity to a platform that I don't necessarily believe in. And as I was doing my research, there is a level of exclusivity that they want. Obviously, if you're going to do a podcast for BBC, it has to be exclusive to them. That means that it's not my podcast will not be accessible on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or other podcast platforms that are used like Google, Podcorn, Podbean. And I was just like, how much money do they think they could give someone to basically give them that level of exclusivity? And my core audience, I don't believe are BBC listeners. Like, I don't believe my core audience sits on the BBC podcast. I just don't. Maybe I'm being delusional, but I really don't. So I had a bit of like a I had a bit of a, I don't know what to call it. Like in business, you know, you think about the pros and the cons. I definitely know that my podcast would be very attractive to the BBC, especially because what they're trying to do over there, and the narratives they're trying to push. But there is just something that's just so disingenuous about the BBC. In my personal belief is they don't center black women. And I definitely know they're going to want creative control over my podcast. And as soon as that happens, as soon as I relinquish that, I lose the essence of what makes the Toy Talks podcast beautiful. So I chose to not apply, not to, you know. So my friend, well, I say my friend, I should say associate, because I don't see the person as a friend. It's an associate. And the person knows I'm speaking about this on the podcast because I told her I'm going to do it. She's like, oh yeah, cool. We associates, baby. And she messaged me and she said, oh, did you apply? And I said, no. And she said, why? And for the reasons I've shared here, I shared it with her. And she said, do you think that you see your podcast as bigger than the BBC? I was like, yes, bitch. I was like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's bigger than the BBC. The BBC can't handle what I do here on the Toy Talks podcast. You're talking about people who sit in senior positions of influence that are white middle class men, and I'm talking about their white constructs. You really think they're not going to want some form of creative control? What's wrong with you, baby? I said, and secondly, I don't really align with what they do. Tell me how they center black women. And she mentioned June Sarpong. I said, yeah, that's great. But if June Sarpong reached out to me and said she wanted to be on the podcast or she'd like me to interview her or whatever, I would work with her, like in a heartbeat. But what I'm not prepared to do is give up the rights to my podcast. You get to dictate to me how I do it, what I do, even maybe when I record, because it may clash with some of your other podcasts that you see as priorities. And if it means that, you know, I'm slower to get to wherever I'm supposed to be, so far as I maintain the integrity of self and the integrity of the podcast, I'm not willing to trade it. You know, I don't need to sell my soul to the devil. Those of you who have read Dr. Faustus, English literature, like, I'm not selling my soul, baby. And I definitely think that sometimes when you're in situations like that, it's difficult because all you want, let me say all you want. Let me say me. All I want is for this podcast to raise awareness, to educate, to provide the tools. And it still breaks my heart when someone messages me and says, where have you been? Oh my God, your podcast is so amazing. I found you by accident, or I found you like this, or I found you like that. It tells me that maybe I'm not doing enough, and I'm really hard on myself. I'm an overachiever. That has its own trauma, honey. But it definitely places pressure on me in a way to do more, because I feel like, well, I'm not doing enough. If someone's saying to me that they've been having work issues for 5-6 years and they've only just now found my podcast, or something's happened over the last year and they've only just now found my podcast, it makes me feel like maybe I do need to do some more marketing. Maybe I need to pay for that marketing. Do you understand? Like, and I think as a true creator, I just want to give what benefits us. Do you understand? And I feel like if it isn't benefiting those people who really need it, then I'm not doing enough. Am I, you know, and I had to ask myself a question. Am I being selfish by not going to utilize these opportunities like the BBC and applying? Who knows? I may not get it, but they'll be stupid if they don't put me on. But do you understand? Like, does it make me selfish? Because I know they're going to have a marketing budget, and it's that marketing that is going to put Toya Talks in the rooms and in places where people don't know I exist. Do you understand? And I'm going to be honest, you guys have been my biggest marketers, because you shared it, you've recommended it, you've tweeted it, you've retweeted it, you've shared it on Instagram. You know, you all have really, really helped me. Like, when at the end of the podcast, when I thank you guys, it's not empty thank yous. I genuinely mean it with every depth of my heart, because I know that the biggest marketers have been the word of mouth. And I definitely recognize that what this is something special, and it will do what it's supposed to do. but in the same breath, there is a level of frustration there. And I think we need to talk about that, because it's like in the world of work, right? Where you see people being promoted, or you see people within the workplace getting certain things that you have worked so hard for, and you feel like you're being overlooked. I feel the exact same way. Better believe it. When it comes to the workplace, honey, excelling, progression. I'm doing really, really well in my career, like really, really well. I could dip out and come back in. That's what I did last year. I took 6 months out. I came back in, honey. I came in more senior. You understand? So that is on lock. But I definitely feel like when it comes to this creative space, I feel like there's certain opportunities that I should get that I'm not getting. And it's funny because I did an Instagram live yesterday, and somebody had asked me, do you think it's because you're not as palatable as other Black creatives? And I 100% agree. I'm not as palatable, because I'm going to talk about the things that make people uncomfortable. A lot of the brands that really want to work with me want to change certain things I say, or they want to give me a script of what to talk about, because they want to center themselves. They would, if this podcast was just about women, I guarantee you, with everything I know, this podcast would be on Spotify exclusive. It would be on whatever exclusively. It would be massive, much, much, much more. I know that. But I can't center women when I know that as Black women, we fall through the cracks of that label women, because the nuance of being a Black woman is completely different from the existence of just being a woman. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm not frustrated when I see opportunities given to people because they're palatable. And I know that these people are not staying true to who they are, but they're willing to bend to be accommodated, or they're willing to bend because they know that's where the money resides. And in a way, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Listen, I like money. I've seen a couple of Cartier bracelets and a couple of rings that I want. Let's get that fact straight, okay? But if I was doing this for the money, if I was doing any of this for the money, I would not have invested all my money in Toya Talks. I've invested in the merchandise and the apparel. I've invested in the podcast, all my equipment. I'm a self-taught editor of the podcast. Like, I've done everything myself, and I wouldn't have done that if I didn't truly believe in what Toya Talks is. Like, and anytime I'm in that situation where I do look at everything and I think, oh my God, I'm not doing enough, you know, I say to myself, okay, you know, I'm so happy for Black women to be put on and to be excelling, because that is the center of everything that I want for Black women. But when I see Black women being palatable, I think to myself, am I shortchanging myself? Like, I'm being overlooked here. Like, it's not like these people don't know I exist. I genuinely believe that there are brands and there are people of influence that listen to this podcast. I know it for a fact, because certain emails I receive, I get reached out. Like, a PR company reached out to me and said, would you be interested in interviewing XYZ on your podcast, because this person is doing da-da-da. And I wrote back and said, this podcast is for Black women, about Black women, to Black women. Your client is a mixed race woman. She's not a Black woman. And there is a nuance there. And a part of me thought, well, maybe that's an angle to discuss on a podcast. But I felt like, well, no, because what you're trying to do is get me to center a mixed race woman so that she can lean into her Blackness, when she's never lent into her Blackness throughout her whole career, from what I've seen. I ain't seen that. You know, so why should I allow you to make my podcast palatable so that she can get exposure off the back of my sweat as a Black woman? Do you understand like what I'm trying to say? Like, let me know if you get what I'm trying to say, because this is what I'm trying to say to you. Like, there is a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that you guys maybe don't know, but I need to start telling y'all. I need to start telling you people. Sorry if I keep breaking into this Americanization. It's because I watched The Real Housewives of Potomac, and you guys know I love Karen Huger. Anyway, so I definitely feel as though I have my own challenges. And when I told my associate I wasn't applying, I definitely felt it didn't feel like disappointment. It felt like, you need to know your place. This is a great opportunity. But not every opportunity is great, honey. It isn't. I want to be, if I was to die tomorrow, I want to be known as Toy Washington, the creator of the Toy Talks podcast, which centers the success of Black women, that provided Black women with the guidance, the advice, and the tools so that Black women can attain success and do so safely. In developing those tools, these Black women are able to pass it on, to teach, and more importantly, to be in the rooms that have often been closed and shut, to give Black women the opportunity to understand how to navigate white spaces so that their success can be birthed. That's what I want to be known as. So if it means that all we're ever going to have is Toya in a house with all her recording equipment doing her thing, then that's what it's going to be. And I just think what is meant for me will come, right? It will be. But yes, I'm a human being. There is no way I can sit here and say, oh, I don't see people bending to what is acceptable, and me thinking, hang on a minute, I'm staying true and you're overlooking me. Do you understand? I mean, I gave an example on Instagram Live. If you want to go and have a look at my Instagram Live, I saved it, whereby I think in the throes of thinking to myself, I need to come out of my comfort zone because your girl's back in therapy. We're going to talk about that later. But in the throes of taking risks and often knowing when to step to one side, I said to myself, maybe I need to just, in order to put out this book, I need to, one last time, give a publisher opportunity to have a conversation with me, or for me to have an opportunity to have a conversation with a publisher, both ways, okay? So there's a publisher I've been following for a while, and I sent her a direct message on Twitter, and she sent me her email address. She was really graceful. She said we should put a call in or whatever. And I sent her a synopsis of the book and my bio, and I said to her, please don't feel obligated to come back to me, and don't feel obligated to, put in a call. But it'll be great to hear back from you if there's a conversation to be had here. That was like a month ago. I ain't heard shit. And I'm not even upset or disappointed. I'm just sick and tired of my own stubbornness, because clearly the ancestors are talking to me. My ancestors are talking to me, and they keep doing this so that I realize that I'm talking about racist white structures. I'm talking about the benefit of centering Black women, and as a Black woman myself, talking about my racial experiences in the world of work, what the Black woman existence in the world of work looks like, working whilst Black, and also giving solutions, antidotes, and teaching skills to Black women. Then I'm sending this synopsis to a white woman. She wasn't never gonna call me back. She just wanted to know what was in it. I haven't heard back from her. And for me, I just think it's just politeness to even just acknowledge that someone sent you something. I mean, when someone sends me a DM, even if I can't respond straight away, I will send you a message to acknowledge your DM. 9 times out of 10, I'll reply. Do you understand? Because I just feel like if you taken the time to write to me, the least I could do is acknowledge what you've sent. And that acknowledgement is replying, and or saying I'm going to reply later. And it's the same way, I think, with publishers. Like, I've reached out to you in direct message. It's not like I've sent you a speculative email. You sent me your email address. I've replied. Yeah, I've taken time to reply. I'm not asking you for a publishing deal. I'm just asking you to sit down and have a conversation with me. Spare me 5 minutes. Like, it takes 5 minutes to walk to the toilet and have a shit on a good day. You can give me 5 minutes. She didn't even acknowledge it. And I just kind of felt like, Toya, my ancestors are telling me that in order for greatness to be attained with what I have here and what we have created here, it is going to require a long-term investment from me financially. And this is the reason why the book isn't ready. Because I'm writing a book, and I've told you guys before, I'm sure on a podcast, I'm not only dyslexic, but the difficulties of having a learning disability and creating a book is much. We're going to talk about that creative process another time. And then I'm going to have to record the podcast, so audio book, because as someone with a learning disability, it's not always easy to read a book. It's just sometimes so much more easier to listen to it audible. And not everybody wants a hardback book. Do you understand? So I don't want to then release a book without the audio. It will have to happen simultaneously. Some people have said to me, well, Toya, why don't you just release it as an ebook? Yeah, I could do that. And I think I will have to look at financially where I sit when the book is ready, and then I can make that decision. But I just think there is just something so beautiful about having a hardback book and being able to, you know, just have a hardback book. Like, I'm old school. So in saying this, the book is probably half done, and I have had like really bad writer's block. I have often like woken up out of bed and just like recorded, because I audio record and then I transcribe, and as I'm transcribing, ideas come to my head. I'm also investing in an iMac computer because I think that will make things easier for me in terms of the writing process, and also to edit the podcast and edit my vlogs and everything. I'm just going to invest in an iMac computer, and it's expensive. It's almost $2,000 for the computer I need to get with the package and software. So I'm really putting blood, sweat and tears, and I hope that this gives people comfort as well, because I definitely recognize that we have to draw parallels to the world of work. You know, you apply for jobs, you don't get responses. Girl, that is a rejection if I ever heard one. Like, it's a lot, and I understand, and I've always told you guys to step into that emotion, because I definitely feel as though if you step into that emotion and understand why it's happening, that will make you more stronger, and it makes you more powerful. And to that end, a lot of people who are not receiving callbacks from jobs and things like that, it's because your CV is not doing what it's supposed to do. And this is why I've created the tools on my website. Like, I didn't just create them just to sell them. I created them because I knew that you could watch these things over and over and over again, these masterclasses, and everything in there is relevant. I had someone reach out to me recently saying to me that, you know, she'd sent her CV for a job and she wasn't getting any response. She purchased the masterclass, then she got shortlisted. And then she purchased the interview masterclass. Homegirl's got an interview. She's got an interview. And I'm talking, this was happening between 48 hours to 72 hours of purchasing the masterclasses, applying for a job, and getting an interview. Do you understand? And the way I've structured the masterclasses, you've got the CV, you've got an interview, you've got the negotiation. So all the steps, and there are, as I've said previously, more masterclasses to go, like passing your probation. Some of you can get the job, yeah? But some of you can't keep it past the probation. And that used to be me. Yeah. There were some jobs that only lasted the probation. And then I'm out because I know they're going to throw me out. So I definitely know that there's some more masterclasses to be added. And I mean, there was this one young lady, she bought the masterclass. She's from South Africa. She bought a masterclass. If you see how her CV pops and bangs, it pops and bangs on a different level. Pops and bangs on a different level. Even she wrote to me one time, she's like, Toya, every time I see my CV, I get excited because I know that my CV is where it's at in terms of attaining jobs. She goes, if I start applying for jobs on this CV, I know for a fact I'm going to get so many interviews. So I'm just taking my time. I'm going on holiday. When I get back from holiday, I'm going to start applying with my new CV. But she goes, there's a power that she feels that actually I'm going to take my time because I know that my CV is good, is really good. And then once I'm ready to now apply for jobs, I'm now ready to kind of enter the workspace. So that was really nice to receive. But I say all this to say that I will always tell everybody, Toya Talks is my first baby. Oh, honey, it's my first child. And I recognize equally that when you don't conform the masses, or when you're not willing to bend to what is palatable, the road to success often can take longer. And I say the road to success, fully acknowledging that the podcast has been successful so far, just not in the quote unquote stages and platforms that I would have thought it would be. But at the same time, I also recognize there's still work to be done, and I'm willing to do that work. So yeah, I kind of want to talk about that. So as I previously mentioned, I'm back in therapy. I'm back in therapy, guys. So I made the decision to go back into therapy because I hold on to anger. look at me trying to find a PC way to say it. I hold grudges, okay? I hold them tight. I hold grudges as tight as my knickers. Yeah, my knickers are real tight. No thrush. That's how tight I hold on to these grudges. And I never really used to be like that, to be honest. I've noticed, though, over the last, I'd say, 7 years, 6-7 years, it's gotten progressively worse. And then it got better, and then it got worse again. And what happens is, when I don't see genuine accountability or sincerity, especially if I feel like I've been offended, especially if I feel like there is no consideration, because I'm a very considerate person. I do expect that from other people, because to be considerate for others means that you have the ability to center other people and not just yourself, because when you center yourself constantly, you become selfish. So I definitely think that because I hold on to stuff, it means that as grown women as we are, when somebody comes back and is like, you know, I know we haven't spoken for years, but I would love to have closure. I'm like, do I look like a door? I need to be closed, baby. You know, I'm very boom. And I'm like an elephant. I remember what you did. I'll be dead. I still remember what you did. It's not even funny. But you know what I'm trying to say? Like, don't get me wrong. I understand that in any type of friendship, there are, you know, you're not always going to get on. There's not always going to be. But I'm a very peaceful friend. All my friends will tell you, I don't argue, I don't cross words with my friend. I'm not into that. I like peaceful life. And part of it is because I like to sleep a lot. So I need peace to do that. Okay? So, so I definitely think in the course of friendships, you fall out, you may not, I don't want to say fall out, you may not agree. Yeah? Because when you've grown, you don't have to fall out. Like, what's all that? I can't even tell you the last person I had an argument with Kay. That's different. My partner's different. We go argue. But you know what I mean? Like, in general terms, I'm just not that type of person to argue. But when somebody wounds me, like wounds my heart, woo! Oh my God. It's like I can't breathe. And it's like, in the pursuit of peace, I may not even address it straight away, because I'm doing it to safeguard that person. Because if I blow and I get really, really angry, the person ain't gonna like me. So I choose to center that person by cooling off before I speak to that person. But if I've got to speak to you about it, the likelihood is, if you don't acknowledge how it's affected me, if you don't acknowledge my feelings, if you don't take accountability, oh my God, I'll be retired, living lavish, and I can still remember what you did. And I can't move forward with that person. So I just end up cutting them off. And that is a very toxic trait. And I have a podcast episode to talk about our toxic traits, because we can identify other people's, but what is our own? And what are we doing about it? How do we structure our relationships in accordance to our toxic traits? We have to talk about that. So before I digress, I'm back in therapy. So that I can deal with that, because it comes out in other ways. And I notice when I'm not in total alignment with myself. So yeah, your girl's back in therapy. And I think also as well, like, dealing with work. My workplace is like a reality show. There is a level of anxiety it gives me, in as much as I'm just doing pyong, 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 like a tennis ball and racket. Pyong, pyong. I'm doing all of that. Girl, it's tiring. It's tiring. And I think as Black women, we take on a lot of trauma. We experience a lot of trauma in life and in work. And I think sometimes you just need to decompress, because it comes out in other ways. You could go in a supermarket and somebody might say something you don't like, but because you know that somebody was racist to you in the office, it can come out in that little supermarket. You understand? So sometimes it's about perspective. And that is what I'm looking for in therapy. Perspective, balance, understanding, and finding a way to make peace with myself when I am wronged. Do you understand? Because even though you can cut someone off, and whilst I think to an extent that's probably a good thing to do, it's not always the healthiest thing to do. And I'm about being healthy, and I'm not just talking about food and weight and health. I'm talking about mental healthy. I'm talking about, you know, how we as in our existence as black women want to live our life. I want to live my life healthy. And you're not always going to get on with everyone. Not everyone's going to like you. But you have to be comfortable within yourself that you've made right decisions, that you're comfortable with the decisions you've made, but also as well that you're processing things in a healthy way. So that's therapy. So I just want to thank God that I'm a consultant, because I don't know what the media are doing to you civil servants, because the media is on crud for you civil servants. Everywhere I read, it's about getting civil servants back into the office. I don't understand. Oh, I do, but I don't. Like, Boris said, it's not mandatory that you have to work from home. That's not the guidance anymore. So he's expecting people to gradually go to the office. But the reality is people that are double jabbed can still get the COVID virus. Also as well, we're seeing an increase, exponential numbers of COVID cases, which means that there's increased hospitalizations. Winter is coming. I ain't talking about Game of Thrones. Why do you want to get people now congregating in offices? The reality is organizations realize that productivity has not been affected by the pandemic. In fact, productivity has increased because people are working more hours and people have less distractions. I say this also to say, I know that the motivation of certain ministers and the current agenda of the media to get civil service, because that's how it starts. It starts with civil service, it starts with everybody else. Back in the office is because you've got your independent sandwich company or sandwich store or van or whatever, and they're not making money. So the only way they make money is footfall. And a lot of that happens with us. How many of you on the way to work go to Pret a Manger? During the day, you'll go to eat. You'll go to all these places. You are feeding into the economy and keeping these businesses alive. Also as well, there's some corner shops that have rich tea biscuits that are outside their sell-by date. Some of these civil servants, they love rich tea biscuit because the tea and biscuit brigade haven't been able to congregate for a long time. This is why there is this push and this agenda, civil servants get them back in the office. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about work. They give a shit about the economy. They think that as soon as the civil servants go back into office, then private sector will now start their own agenda. Let me help you understand, because I know a lot of you businesses listening to my podcasts, because I can't be charting on the business podcast, on Apple Podcasts, if you businesses are not listening here. You guys are mad. Yeah, with a capital mad. You guys are mad. So let me get this right. Productivity has increased. You've been able to save rental on offices because now you get to downsize. You and I all know that you cannot go to a full-time model of people being in office full-time. A lot of you are recognizing, number one, that you have to go to a hybrid model, and you have to work that out, because having someone in the office 4 days a week and 1 day a week at home is not hybrid. It is still full-time. That's bullshit. Some workplaces are realizing actually we don't need an office, you can work remote. And whilst I acknowledge that people that have come straight from school, straight from university, are therefore not experiencing the work life the way we know it, they're being cheated of that, being able to kind of hear conversations and stuff. I get all of that. But you know what? Do you know what? I myself as a consultant, I've had less distractions. I've saved a shitload of money because I haven't had to invest in getting on the train, going to Pret a Manger. How many different sandwiches can I have? Toasted, just bread, take the crust off. I'm saving money. I'm able to do my work. I mean, when I finish this podcast, I'm going to log on to work for 30 minutes. Do you understand? I feel like these people are getting more out of me than they're paying for. Because I know that doing work is not difficult. I literally roll out of bed. Listen, do you know how many times I've been in a meeting remotely in my Versace robe? Come on, like, work-life balance is called balance. And me, I'm balancing from the bed to the desk. So, and it works for me. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm actually going to do research on this. I bet companies saw an exponential decrease of the amount of sick leave people were taking. Because last week I was sick, I wasn't feeling too well. There was 2 days I was sick. Do you know that I logged on? I was going to log off. Before I knew it, it was already midday. When I was going to log off again, it was 3 o'clock. You've already got... Do you understand what I'm saying? I didn't have to call in sick. Because I was like, okay, I'm just going to log on. Even if you're going to log on to email your boss to tell you, your boss, you're not coming there today, you'll get distracted by an email. Before you know it now, you've done a full day's work. So I think organizations need to be strategic. And this is the problem. Organizations don't know how to be strategic because micromanagers can't cope without people to bully, boss around and shout at. Let's be honest. What are the jobs of micromanagers if we're not in the office? Because they try to do this remote micromanaging. It doesn't work. All I have to tell you is that my internet is not working, it's not stable. And I just leave the meeting, log off. What's all this? You piss me off, I restart my computer again. Don't be giving me bullshit. Do you understand what I'm saying? Equally, I think remote working has also benefited people's mental health. Do you know the level of anxiety? I say, do you know? We all know the level of anxiety associated to office politics when you go into office. But before you go to office, you have to deal with the navigating the public transport. If it's not somebody's armpits, it's someone's elbow. If it's not someone's elbow, they've got earwax dropping out of their ears. You have to then race for a chair, a seat on the train. Listen, I'm not here for all that. By the time I get to office, my blood pressure is through the roof. And I know this because I'm sweating. My armpits are sweating. Everything is sweating. My vagina is sweating. Everything's sweating. Then when I get in the office, I have to go to my desk. But if we're hot desking, the same desk I had yesterday isn't the same one I had today. Maybe there's no desk on my floor. I have to go to another floor. Now, once I find that floor, I put on my lap. It's smart. Even when I'm saying it to you, I'm having a headache. I'm having a headache. And I think people need to stop this whole, civil servants get paid too much money for what they do. Listen, we know that civil servants, they're called them rich tea and custard cream biscuit brigade. We know them. Yeah? However, they've still shown up for work. You can't say they shouldn't get London waiting because they're not having to travel. So you should cut their money so that you can take the travel money away from them since they're not traveling. What about the internet they're using? What about the gas and electricity they're using? What about all the equipment and everything they've had to do in their house to now equip themselves? Come on, stop all of this. I've seen an increase of my electricity and gas since I've been working from home. Come on, what's all this? And the fact that people now, don't get me wrong, I understand how it's affected some people's mental health, but this agenda that's coming from the media and, ministers are out of touch with reality anyway. Let's be honest. It's okay for them to expense, what do you call this one? Lasagna from M&S. People don't have that type of money. The thing is, the people that are asking and demanding civil servants go back to work are the same people that don't have to, the same people that earn so much money that going back to work is not an issue for them. Do you understand? They can afford the transport money. You know what? Let me be honest. I can't afford transport, Not with all the money I've saved. No, I can't afford transport. I can't. How much is a one? Listen, where I'm in the UK, I'm in London, if you can't tell by my accent. You have to do the zone. I swear to God, if I've got zone 1 to 4 weekly, you know what? 1 second. Let me go and check. Okay, so I've just looked online. A travel card zone 1 to 4. So if it's a day travel card, it's £13.90. A day off peak, obviously, off peak is after 9:30. Obviously, work starts before. I have morning meeting every day at 8:30. So obviously, we have to get it on peak. Off peak is £13.90. A 7-day travel card, zone 1 to 4, is £53.20 every week. Wow. A 7-day travel card. Hell, a monthly is £204.30, and an annual travel card, so 1 to 4, is £2,128. So you know what I'm gonna do? Let me do 1 to 6, because who is really doing 1 to 4? No, we're not doing that. Edit journey. I'm literally doing this live. 1 to 6. I don't even know what is zone 7. Okay, you know what? Let's do zone 7, because since I don't know what it is, we need to learn it today. Okay, let's do zone 7. Because some of us have been smart enough to know that the cost of living in London is too expensive. Some of us need to go outside London. And the reality is as well, you don't need to live in London to be working in London. The pandemic has shown that organisations can get the creme de la creme of employees and staff anywhere in the world. And you can log on remotely. All you need is good internet. So, zone 1 to 7, Annual travel card, £2,948. A monthly travel card, £283.10. 7-day travel card, £73.70. So that's £73.70 times 4, innit? Daytime, £24.80 a day. Off peak, £14.70. And it goes up every year. There is no cap on travel. So I remember when getting on the bus used to cost 40p as a kid and then £1 as an adult, or 80p as an adult. No. Or not Oyster card. It's like, is it like £2, £3 now? It's expensive. I think living in London is expensive anyway, but living outside London, trying to come into London is more expensive. I'm just the cost I've given you is just for in London travel, like in London. If you're traveling out of London into London, you have to add at least £100 more or £150 more. Listen, yeah, that don't work for me. But this campaign against civil servants, which will trickle down to us consultants and people in the private sector, is dangerous, because the rhetoric is, we don't give a shit about this pandemic. We know it's a global crisis, but we need you in the office and we need you to risk your life to get in the office so you can keep the sandwiches stores open, so you can keep Pret a Manger open. And whilst I completely understand that at the end of the day, these places employ people and they've got a job to do, equally, it is not my personal job. Them sandwiches that are costing £7.50, it's not my job to keep that sandwich man employed at the risk of my life. That's how I look at it. And those of you that are gonna be, oh girl, tell you that's selfish. Well, you know what? I can make sandwiches in my house. I got a sandwich maker. These are all the things I learned. Listen. These are all the things I learned during the pandemic. I have a new coffee machine. Who's going to Starbucks? Costa who? Cafe Nero. What happened? No, not me. Sandwich maker. Pret a Manger where? Them crest sandwiches, them lobster sandwiches. I can go and buy lobster from Billingsgate, chop it all up and put it in bread. Bread ain't good for me anyway because it's too much carbs. Don't do that. Don't do that. The government will have you thinking that your life will not be balanced again unless you risk your life to keep the economy alive. And really and truly, who's benefiting from this economy? Because I know a lot of us haven't saved. Listen, we haven't saved as much as we have done now, first and foremost. We have seen a lot of purchases, first-time buyers buying houses. Why? Because they've been able to save money. Why? Because they've been able to hold down jobs a lot better in the pandemic. It hasn't been everybody's story, but follow me here, you know what I'm saying. There is an economic benefit to us too, employees, consultants, contractors, whoever you are. There's been an economic benefit to this pandemic. And whilst I look at the pandemic holistically, and I know it hasn't been great for everybody, there are some people who have benefited from the pandemic. For example, the ability to work remotely, the ability to upgrade your laptop and ergonomics and everything, being able, I know some workplaces that have given company bonuses based on increase in revenue during the pandemic. But listen, there's some companies, it hasn't changed them. You understand? Because a lot of these companies were already at a hybrid working state. Google have said that they have no desire returning to full-time offices. I think I told you guys a few months ago, I worked with an organisation who'd approached me on the Toy Talks platform to help them in terms of downsizing their estate, and therefore how they're going to communicate that to the team. You know, they wanted to reassure them they're not going to lose their jobs and what they could do to actually support that transition. Come on. I feel like tech companies have done really well in the pandemic. There's certain industries that have done well, and I think it's been an opportunity to be an eye-opener and an education piece for all of us. There are some sectors that are safer than others, period. There are some organisations that are not going to accept remote working or even hybrid working. Does that work for you? That don't work for me. I am a confirmed remote worker, and every time I get a job email from somebody I know, you know, some of these consultants that says remote working capitals, I like it, because what that tells me is in my sector, I can be remote forevermore. Amen. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that because I felt like it was really important. Anybody who wants to discuss it, maybe you've got a dilemma related to the remote working situation, email hello@toytalks.com. Let's talk about it here on the Toy Talks podcast. But that's my view, and I want to talk about it because the agenda that they're pushing in the media, the constant campaigns that I'm seeing, I've got a couple of friends who are civil servants and they're petrified to go back in the office. I did see something on social media where somebody had posted a question and somebody had replied and said, I wish we were back in lockdown. And I actually understand where that person's coming from. Just follow me here. I understand that some people just see life as one big trauma. And actually what lockdown did is it gave people an opportunity to spend time with themselves. And people are really happy with their own company. They want to spend time with themselves. They don't necessarily want to feel forced into interacting in social settings or in workplace settings. And actually the thought of actually returning to anything that remotely resembles what quote unquote normal was is actually quite terrifying. And I get that. I understand that 100%. But I think what it did is it polarized the conversation. And it polarized how difficult, yes, people found the pandemic and lockdown and how it affected people's mental health, but for some, there were other people who did not have that experience. I'm going to be honest, from my perspective, I like my own company. I like working from home. I think I've said this about 10 times on this podcast. And also as well, I'm an ambivert. And the way my personality type is set up, if it wasn't for the fact that not leaving my house would affect my mental health, I would stay at home all the time. And I like my own company. I don't like crowd. I'm not the type of person that goes out every week. I'm not one of those people. And I think even with the pandemic and everything that's happened, and the fact that we're seeing an increased infection rate, I know that I've made the decision not to be vaccinated. Again, a podcast episode, we can talk about it, deep dive, we're going to have that conversation. But in not having the vaccine, for my own reasons, is the reason why you're not going to see me out every week. You are going to see me with my mask on. I am going to protect myself. Do you understand? And I definitely feel as though to deal with this pandemic, they're going to have some other lockdowns. It doesn't make sense the way it's gone. And I don't feel comfortable on public transport. I don't even remember the last time I got on public transport. It's been a while. And I definitely don't feel comfortable with the polarised agenda from the government. And the idea that 16 and 17-year-olds don't need to ask permission from their parents to get the vaccine. They're trying to trial vaccines on children. I could go on. Anyway, let us get to the meat of this podcast episode. So this episode is entitled End Credits. The reason why I have entitled this podcast episode End Credits is also based on what we saw in the media with Jessie J and Nicki Minaj. And I want to get into it. But I want you to look at that situation from a different perspective. So I'm going to read the article that Jessie J did. And it was for Glamour magazine. And then I'm going to read Nicki Minaj's response, Jessie J's response. We're going to break it down. For those of you who do not know Jessie J is a remarkable singer. She's an amazing singer. I'd say she does R&B, straight pop, heavy black influences in her music. You can hear it. I mean, when she had a track called Do It Like a Brother. What brother, babe? Anyway, let me not. Nicki Minaj, we know who she is already. The bad Barb. Nicki Minaj. We know who she is. I'm not even a massive fan of hers, but I just respect her musical genius. So this was the article that caused the fracas that we saw in the media last week. Bang Bang was a song that already existed. I didn't write Bang Bang. Max Martin wrote Bang Bang and Ariana had been played it. I'd been played it and we both loved it. We just said, why don't we both do it? So Ariana stayed on the second verse. I recorded the first verse and then Nicki was played it in the studio and was like, I've got to jump on this. And this is quoted. We didn't go to her and ask. She wanted to do it. I'll never forget. I was in my bedroom, in my flat in London, and I got sent the version with Nicki on it. I just sat at the end of my bed, holding my phone, staring at the floor, going, how the fuck did I land this? I literally felt like I had won. I don't know what else is A. So Nicki Minaj responded, babe, at Jessie J. I didn't hear the song and asked to get on it. The label asked me to get on it and paid me. How would I have heard the song? Child, what am I, the damn song monitor? Snooping around for songs, child. And then she put like laugh emoji. This was said by another artist recently as well. Y'all gotta stop. And then she had a balloon emoji, love you, kiss emoji. Before I go on to Jessie J's response, I don't think there is a problem with Nicki Minaj, or anybody for that matter, publicly putting the facts straight if they are incorrectly in the public domain. Because if you were to read, I don't read Glamour magazine because it doesn't center black women. It's not about me. That magazine is not for me, to me, about me. But if I read that article, I would think exactly as Jessie J has said, that Nicki Minaj asked to heard the track and asked to do the song. Do you understand? And all intents and purposes, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Remember, this episode is called End Credits. We're gonna talk. You're gonna see it like a jigsaw puzzle. If that is inaccurate, because you've got to remember as well, there was quotation marks. And the quotation marks said that Nicki was played the song in the studio and said, I've got to jump on this. So what we're hearing is Nicki Minaj really wanted to do the track. And Nicki Minaj has basically come back and said, no, child. No. They asked me to do the track and I got paid for it. Because it's not like she heard it and said, I want to jump on it and didn't get paid. Do you understand? Like, this was a business transaction. And Nicki Minaj is a living legend. So for me, everyone knows that Nicki Minaj, she's straight talking. She's not rude. She's not disrespectful. In my opinion, she's straight talking. And I think if there's something inaccurate out there in the public domain, you're using quotation marks, you put it in a magazine, and it's incorrect, I can correct you. I don't need to correct you in private because you didn't come to say that to me in private. You put it there in the media. So this was Jessie J's response. It's fucking long. It's actually fucking tiring. Anyway. I'm the first person to admit Bang Bang would never have been what it was without you guys. I'm sorry I got the story wrong all these years. I was told you heard the song and wanted to be on it by someone clearly gassing me up at the label. Bless them and my naive ass. Thank you for clarifying. I was wrong on that, and do it like a dude told me, huh? Before I continue, you never said that someone told you that. You made it sound like you were there when someone played the track and Nicki said that she wants to jump on it. Can you understand why it's important to correct inaccuracies? And you have to do it in the way in which the inaccuracies were put out there. So it has to be public. What a way for us to celebrate the 7-year anniversary of the song. And then she put laughy emoji and then like a frowny emoji. Should we all go to dinner? ? No, probably not, right? Too soon. Bang Bang Part 2? ? No. Okay, got it. Do it like a dude remix? Okay, I'll stop. Look, the song did its damn thing. I will never say you asked to be on a song ever again. Although all the drama memes and man have the memes of me have kept me entertained all day. Swipe for a good old laugh. Always love and light from me, babes. Then there's a heart. But Jessie J couldn't leave it there. She came back again. I respect you publicly being yourself, Nicki Minaj. So here I am being myself. So the same way somebody must have gassed you, apparently, allegedly someone gassed you to tell you that Nicki Minaj wanted to jump on the track. When you did your first statement, someone's clearly gassed you again because you've come back again. This is the second time. Can you see fragility in action? The violence of fragility. You can't let it go. Nicki Minaj responded to you one time, baby. We now have a second response. I respect you publicly being yourself, Nicki Minaj, at Nicki Minaj. So here I am being myself. This is a video of me back in 2015 on stage taking a piss out of myself, which is basically an hour of my set. It was made into a meme about 2 weeks ago. Is that what this is really about? And where this weird energy between us began? Or maybe it was when you used me as a stair rail at the AMAs. That was also funny as fuck. Laughing emoji. Let me stop there. Pause there for a moment. Can you see? So we've gone from you doing an interview for Glamour magazine, you saying something that you are claiming you didn't know was inaccurate, Nicki Minaj correcting you, and then you came back, peaceful, cool, that you've come back again. You've come back a second time to now say that your response has to be something else. It can't be this. It's because somebody made you into a meme. And I've watched the meme, yeah? I'm going to come to that. Then you say that at the AMA Awards, she used you as a sterile. So what you've now decided to do, you've now decided, because Nicki Minaj has put the record straight, you want to shame this black woman that made the record in question bang the way it did. The track is called Bang Bang. It bangs twice because of Nicki Minaj. Can you see what I'm saying? Can you see? Do you know how violent this is? Because there is no respect. You're inviting everybody to the cookout. That's the problem. You invite everybody to come to the cookout, and then you invite them one time and they keep coming back every bloody week. As black people, we need to be gatekeepers of how people appropriate our culture. And I don't care what no one says. In my opinion, Jessie J is a category A black appropriator. Let's continue. If we can't laugh in the lives we have been blessed with, what's the point? It really isn't that deep. Well, if it isn't that deep, why have you come back a second time? Why have you got to tell us about the AMAs? What's that got to do with an inaccuracy of an interview that you gave to Glamour magazine? From the moment I met you to now, I've shown you nothing but love and gratitude for how fucking blessed I was to have you and Ariana Grande, who, by the way, wrote Bang Bang, which I found out today from her. Jesus, what a day. Sorry, Ari. I never knew. Was never told. Wild. Run that story everywhere, please. I felt like I had won a competition. Did back then and still do now. So let's get this right. You even said that somebody had wrote the record and now found out that they didn't. Ariana Grande wrote the record. So do you understand why it's important that Nicki corrects you when you have put inaccuracies out there? You even was inaccurate about who wrote the song. Ariana Grande had to tell you, no, it was her that wrote the song. So instead of you to take that as a teachable moment, you've decided to come and disgrace Nicki Minaj. You've decided to come and drag her. But when you found out that Ariana did it, I mean, I'm sure you two must have spoken. Why haven't you said what the conversation was about? No, it's Nicki Minaj you want to focus on. Continue. I'm the first person to admit Bang Bang would never have been what it was without you guys. I'm sorry I got the story wrong all these years. I was told you heard the song and wanted to be on it by someone clearly gassing me up at the label. Bless them and my naive ass. Thank you for clarifying. I was wrong on that and do it like a dude. Told me, huh? You see, this is the problem. Why is it that black women can't just be celebrated for their greatness, especially when a black woman who is talented, as graceful, and as just damn well creative in a way that we haven't seen for so long, Nicki Minaj. She made your track bang, yeah? She was paid to feature on the track. You gave an inaccurate statement in the same public forum that you used. She also used a public forum, but you were slighted. Instead of you to do all this acknowledgement and just stop, your fragility didn't allow you to pause and have a moment of reflection. You came again. When you came again, you now told us how Nicki Minaj used you as a sterile. Well, maybe you were standing still and she needed to help herself to balance. What's wrong with that? How many of us have been at an event or something, we maybe see a woman struggling or whatever, you say, oh, do you want a hand? I mean, I don't see a problem with that. But what you're trying to do is make it seem like Nicki Minaj made you feel like you were beneath her. That's what you're trying. You see what? I've got that podcast about framing. Yeah? Can you see how she's framing it? Then there was a tweet by Craig's Pop Life. And this literally defined everything between these two. Why do white women always remind Nicki Minaj how nice and supportive they've been towards her? Privilege, power play. They expect her to be grateful and retaliate when she doesn't show the deference they expect. She has every right to check this behavior when it surfaces. Drops the mic. Why is it that want to remind us how nice and supportive they've been. It's like before they choose violence, then they remind you how gracious and how everything they've been. That's just being a human being. That's just being a human being. And this quote that was tweeted, by Craig's Pop Life is a definition entirely why I call this end credits. Because why can't we as black women be supported by non-black women, non-black people? And when we do amazingly, just be credited on what we do. Why is there a need to remind us that your supportiveness has done something for us? And in my head, I'm thinking it is very targeted towards black women, because it's like they want to remind us how we got there. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It is violent. It's a form of a microaggression. And as far as I'm concerned, Jessie J was being microaggressive. Because I don't get how we've gone from, oh my God, I've supported you, I love you so much, I felt like I'd won a competition. I still remember when you used me as an armrest or whatever the crap at the AMA. It just gives me fragility. It gives me immaturity. It gives me smelly behaviour. What Jessie J needs to realise is for everything she is in music, it's accredited and attributed towards black culture. And we need to have that conversation. We need to have, how many times have white women, white men, non-black people had to use black people or had to balance themselves, step on, steal, pillage to be able to benefit from anything that we have created? Bang Bang was a hit because of Nicki Minaj. Because let's really be real, Ariana Grande and Jessie J on a track on their own wouldn't have banged the way it banged with Nicki on it. It may have done really well, but not the way it did with Nicki. And I only remember Bang Bang because of Nicki Minaj. Sorry, not sorry. Jessie J says she wants to do it like her brother. Yes, because you guys kept inviting her to the cookout. And she kept coming. She didn't realise that was a one-time invitation. And this is what happens as black people when we don't gatekeep. This is what happens when we don't hold non-black people accountable for the stupid, racist, and sometimes violent in the way they communicate with us. I think Jessie J is talented. I think Jessie J is somebody who is not only very creative, but clearly very successful. But what I don't understand is, why is it when it's time to give respect and credit to a black woman just because she made your song bang? Why can't it just stop there? Why does it have to be a constant reminder of, oh, I did this, or do you understand? In one hand, you're saying, oh, you made the track for what it was. On the other hand, you're saying, oh, somebody told me this. Well, obviously, what somebody told you was inaccurate. Nicki took to Twitter to correct it. And maybe, and maybe, just maybe, you could have just taken the time to think, actually, do you know what? She's just correcting me. Why did you take it personal? Then you're telling us about a meme. And I've seen the meme, and the meme it basically looks like Jessie J is mocking Nicki Minaj, like miming. And I don't actually think it's that. I think it's the fact that you gave an interview for Glamour magazine and you put in quotation marks what Nicki supposedly said. Nicki said, I didn't say that. I didn't. What did you expect Nicki Minaj to do? Write to Glamour magazine and say, can you take this down, or can you rephrase this? She ain't gonna do that. Or maybe you was expecting her to pick up the phone and call you, pander to your fragility. And because she wasn't prepared to do that, you decided then to respond. And rather than just say, you know what, I didn't realise this, Ariana wrote the song as well, I misquoted that too, but I was just so excited to and left it like that. But you didn't. You wanted to drag her down too. You wanted to gaslight. You wanted to do all this stuff just so that you felt that you had been vindicated from taking any type of responsibility. And this is what we see in workplaces. It is, listen, even in my career, I'm telling you, I'm going to go on record to say, all the opportunities I've had in my career has come from being strategic, having objectives, being strategic, and understanding how to navigate the world of work. However, a lot of the doors that have been opened for me has been by white women. I'll be the first person to admit it. But let me tell you something. Those doors could have only been open if I had what it takes to walk through them doors. So none of these white women that open the door for me can come to me and try to take credit for the door that they open. No. If I want to give credit, that's my choice. You don't force that. You understand? And my thing is as well is, if you are going to remind me of what you've done, I'm going to have to check you. Because you have to understand, you're not dealing with a dummy. Yeah? You're dealing with someone with a learning disability who managed to navigate education, who managed to work her way up to be able to even sit in front of you to tell you there was a door to open. How about that? And I think we need to talk about that more. We need to talk about the way that people discredit us by this underhanded manner of reminding us of certain things, to check us and put us in our place, and in a way using that to now discredit us, and then giving us these backhanded compliments. How about I give you a front-hand compliment? Step aside. That's on bullshit. That is really on bullshit. And when I smell bullshit, I will call it. I will call it. Why is it as black women, you can't just celebrate us and our successes? Why do you need to be a part of that success? Why can't you allow the person that is successful to say, you know what, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm so grateful for this person. Because one thing about me is I'll give you credit. I'll give you credit. I've got no issue with giving you credit. But you can't take the credit. You open the door because I gave you a reason to open it. You understand? I didn't just drop from the sky. I wasn't in a Sainsbury's bag that's dropped off the sky, landed in front of you, and then the door was there. It didn't work like that, babes. And let's really be honest. The reason you opened the door for me is because while I was working for you, I made you look good enough for you to know that you got to a certain point that in order to retain me, to have me continuously make you look good, you had to open a couple of doors. It was a trade-off. It was transactional. It is the world of work. I just navigated smartly. I knew how to get what I wanted without having to step, crush, or dethrone anybody. I knew that as long as I was a subject matter expert in what I did, as long as I had a plan, as long as I was strategic, and as long as I was a safe pair of hands, I knew that I could literally do anything I wanted in my career insofar as I was willing to be smart about it. Nicki Minaj has, as a black woman, done so well. Whatever personal opinion you may have of her, at the end of the day, when a white woman doesn't stay on topic, when a non-black person doesn't stay on topic, but would rather use underhanded tactics to remind Nicki who she is, where she came from, how she got there, that's a problem for me. Don't misquote me, because I will correct you in the same forum where you misquoted me. And I don't think there's a problem with that, because you used your chest. You didn't remember to tell the interviewer somebody told you in the record company. You were talking like you and Nicki were in a room. And when you two were in the room, you played her the song. And when you played the song, she was like, I really want to get on it. Like almost like Nicki Minaj really desperately wanted to get on it, and you opened the door for Nicki to do it. That's how it sounds. And it's not that. And what is it about when we see successful, when people see black women who are successful, rather than celebrating the success, you find ways in which to manage the narrative to center yourself. That's a problem for me. That's a problem for me. Listen, at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, people need certain people to be able to do certain things, right? Some people have access to certain people who can open certain doors. We all know this. We know how it works in life as well. But what I don't accept is Jessie J actually not giving credit where it's due. You were corrected. You didn't want to look like a fool, even though you looked like a fool twice over. And I think when you say I've always supported your voice, doing that, I'm really a big fan, all of this, it doesn't make any sense when the person that you're a big fan of, you're using this forum, a public forum, to discredit them, to make yourself feel better because you look like a fool. Just saying. And on the whole cookout thing, I just want to say this. My opening credit here, and my opening quote was about Murad Murilli. And I'm going to say this now. He's in our business too much. He's in our business too much, and he has become successful, by purporting himself to be an ally of black women, because his core supporters are black women. But those same black women who are his core supporters, I'm going to ask you a question. What has he done to further support and invest in the success of black women? Because from where I'm sitting, he is using the plight of black women to count his coins, to make his coins. That's what he's doing. I've seen the way he's spoken about Kaz, and then on the other hand, you're like, oh, I can't believe she's up for, you know, I can't believe she's in the bottom two. Well, you are the one that was dragging her. You're the one that was saying certain things that would lend itself to the fact that she's now probably going to go home. And obviously, I've seen tonight's episode. I know that she doesn't go home. But it's the fact that you need to... I personally think this. If you're going to be an ally, as black women, we need to gatekeep how these allies are going to be allies, and we need to tell them the rules of engagement. When you give somebody a free pass to do what they want, they will overstep. And when they overstep, they feel that they have the right to. He's always talking on black women's business. But this is an Asian man. Why don't you talk on the business that affects Asian people? Leave the business that affects us to us, because we are the ones that are directly affected, not you. Not you. And the issue that I have with the black women that support him is, do they take a step back and think to themselves, what is the end goal here? What is the end goal here? What has he done using his platform to elevate the success of black women? That's what I'm going to ask you. You yourself, what has he done to elevate you that are watching? What has he done? What has he done to give you the tools to be successful? Tell me, what has he done? Stop making non-black people the centerpiece of your blackness. Stop giving them the mantle to take and run away up and down. Because let me tell you something, the only people that benefit are them. Does he donate the money that he makes to black causes? Does he? Does he? No, he doesn't. And this is what I'm saying. It's okay for certain people to appropriate black culture or appropriate certain things within our culture. But when it comes to investing in our culture, when it comes to advocating, and when I say advocating, let me just tell you something. Kaz on Love Island, sometimes she gets on my damn nerves. Sometimes she gets on my damn nerves, but you know what? When it's time to show up, I'm voting for her to stay. I'm celebrating her and I'm screaming for her, because we don't need to have our business all out there. When we as black women are talking, we know how to do our own. We'll just talk privately. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? But when it comes outside, when it comes to defend our own, we need to stand up and be counted. Murad Morelli is not on them same rules. You understand? He feels like he can say what he likes. He feels like he is now the voice piece for black women. I need to know who elected him, please. So I was just sipping my tea. I was just waiting. I need to know. And this is the problem. Because what happens is, when you actually have black people in our community doing the things that I've mentioned, i.e. centering black women, advocating for black women, ensuring that we're elevating black women, we don't get that same support from our own. But when it's time to give the support to a so-called ally, you're willing to do it. And the rules and terms of engagement are not addressed. So when they overstep, you can't say shit to them. Because you told them to come to the cookout on Saturday and Sunday. They've decided they can come Monday to Friday as well. Simple. No, I'm not here for it. And I'm going to say this. At the end of the day, as a black woman, I will say this because it's how I feel. It's the way I view things. And in creating a platform like this that centers black women, I will hold non-black people accountable when they tell me that they're allies and I can't see where they're allying. Oh, he talks about this. Oh, he talks about that. Talk. Where's the action? Why is it that as black women, some of us are just happy with the crumbs? And it's not even crumbs that are left for you. It's just crumbs. Just any crumbs. Just dash the crumbs there. Dash the crumb there like confetti. We're happy with that. When are we going to start realizing that we deserve so much more? When are we going to start telling our allies what we want from them? When are we going to start doing that? Because during the Black Lives Matter movement, I saw everybody hashtagging t-shirts out there, protesting, screaming, doing vlogs, screaming. Nah. It's a year on since the resurgence of Black Lives Matter. What's happened? What's happened? as far as I'm concerned, Murad Morelli is a bandwagon jumper. Yeah? And he jumps onto the bandwagon of what he knows is going to excite his audience, who are black women. Listen, I remember when I posted something last summer about Murad. Do you know the people that were coming at me were black women? And why can't he be an ally? I said to one girl, did I tell you can't be an ally? I want you to tell me how you've benefited from his allyship. How has it directly affected your life? Because from where I'm sitting, I don't see that, baby. Has he equipped you at work? Has he equipped you in life? Has he donated? Has he done this? How have you directly benefited from his allyship? Awareness. Awareness. Aware. Okay, awareness. And what next, babes? Because awareness without action is just lip service, darling. Tell me. She said, oh, you sound angry. I said, no, I'm angry at you. Because you're trying to check me for checking someone who's not checking for us. What's that? What's that? And then she came back into my DMs. Oh, I didn't realize you had a platform like this. I said, it's not about my platform. It's not about that. Do you know what it's about? It's about holding non-black people accountable for pretending to act like they're allies when really they're only allies because it benefits them. And you are one of the people that was ready to come and buck me for somebody who don't give a shit about you, for somebody who has not benefited you directly. You're just there in the comments being a crusader, tap, 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 tap. But when it's time to ask your boss for annual leave, you'll just be shaking like a leaf. Is Murad Morelli helping and supporting you as you navigate how to take time off work? Girl, don't try me. Yeah, and I blocked her. Are you mad? Why is it that our end credits, when I talk about end credits, you know at the end of a movie, and it credits all the people that contributed to a movie, contributed to everything. When are we going to start being in a position to say that we want to add our allies to those end credits? Because I don't see them there. Do you know why I don't see them there? Because it only come when it's hot. It only comes when it's a hashtag. But when it's really time to invest, to create what needs to be created to benefit and center black women, I'm not seeing them people there. As far as I'm concerned, me, you heard how I started this podcast. I'm not compromising what my platform is. And some of you may say, well, Toya, it's because you're a black woman. Yeah. And I am best placed, you are best placed as a black woman to discuss and speak on the things that need to be spoken. But Murad is in our business too much. And because he's in our business too much, he feels like he's got license. And because he's got license, he thinks he's got licenses. And in the use of those licenses, what you're not realizing is all he is doing is riling you up to push and benefit his checks on YouTube. Period. If he has a problem with what I'm saying, then you can come on the podcast, come tell me what your problem is and let's chat about it. Because maybe what needs to happen is I need to hold you accountable on the podcast, which centers black women, and have black women ask you the questions that need to be asked. How about we do that? But he ain't gonna do that. I'm not the one or the two. That's what I'm saying, because I'm not here. I really hate it when all the work that, as black women, I see so many black women doing work in our community, collect your car for, so many people doing work in our community, and then you have the bandwagon jumpers that use us like we're just a fad, a trend. And when we stop trending, they'll use underhanded tactics to discredit us or to say things that would, for example, on Love Island, that would seemingly look like allyship on the face of it, but actually it's not that. And some of us don't have developed understanding of discernment to be able to discern between a true ally and one purporting to be an ally, but purporting to be one because it benefits him financially. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, people will turn around and say, what are you trying to say? You shouldn't benefit financially. I'm not saying that. But then how is he using those finances to benefit our community? How? Is he paying people school fees? What's he doing? Is he making charitable donations? What is he doing? And what pisses me off is a lot of people will blindly just go there and support, oh, black women, he talks about us, he talks about us, he talks about us. Listen, we've got a lot of people that talks about us. But 2 years' time, the same issues that they were talking about us, they're still talking about. We need to start making changes. And this is what I always said. If I had a platform that wasn't making fundamental changes to black women like myself, I wouldn't have this platform. I wouldn't. I'd just say, you know what? I wouldn't. But I know that in everything I'm pouring into, I'm seeing the fruits of what I'm pouring into. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And in doing that, I'm also developing and learning and being the best person I can be and using myself as an example. Do you think it's easy to come here every week and have to work through trauma on the podcast to be able to teach you, to be able to say, actually, this is where I went wrong, guys, probably don't go down there, or to be able to unpack certain things in the way that we do it here, so that you guys can go into your workplaces, and even I'm not sitting there with you, but at least you've got the podcast to refer to, you've got the masterclass, you've got things that I've been able to create as tools to benefit us. Do you understand? And when I say benefit, I've listen, the stories I've heard, I've read on this podcast as well, of women thinking that they weren't worth this, they couldn't do this, suddenly now they're excelling. Do you understand? People who didn't know they could negotiate, suddenly now they're 10, 20 grand more. People that didn't think they could be director level, manager level, they're all doing them things and opening the door for the rest of us to come through. Do you understand what I'm saying? For me, how can I be a successful black woman without opening the door wide open and say, black women, this is how we do it, this is how it's done, here are the tools, let me teach you, let me show you, open the door so you can come in. What doors is Murad Morelli opening, and who's he letting in? Because the last time I checked, he ain't letting anyone in that look like us, babes. He ain't. And I'm saying these things, and people are trying to make it seem as though I'm being rude. I'm not being rude. Honesty is not rudeness. Honesty is rudeness to people who can't handle the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. The same way Jessie J thinks it's okay to disrespect Nicki Minaj is the same way Murad Morelli is disrespecting you lot. The difference is Nicki Minaj checked him. Are you going to check him? Are you, Nicki Minaj checked Jessie. Are you going to check Murad? No, you're not. You're not. I can't even watch his channel no more. I can't. There was one thing he had on Kaz. I think I was 2 minutes in. I was like, no, I can't. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Because I'm thinking to myself, why is this guy all in a timeline? But yet, instead of, as black women, for us to check that behaviour, you would rather check a fellow black woman who is actually doing the thing she said she's going to do, but you won't go and check him. You're not going to hold him accountable. Do you know how messed up that is? You know how messed up that is? My man is moving house every 5 minutes, bigger and better houses. You haven't benefited from him. You're in the same position, watching him in them same videos, but you're in the same position. My man's being elevated. He's making money off you, and you're not holding him accountable and asking him, what are you doing for the benefit of black women on a practical level? You're not asking him them questions. So don't feel like to answer them. When he sees a black woman on TV, he's got an opinion from the crown of her head to the soles of her feet. He's got an opinion. I don't see him with them same opinions about Asian people in his community. Equally, I'm not seeing black women having them same opinions, having them that same past to talk about Asian people in his community. We don't do that. Do you know why? Because we know where the boundaries reside. We know. I can't talk about what happens in other people's community. Why would I do that? I'm not in their community. What am I talking? I'm talking out my ass if I'm trying to do that. I can only talk about what happens in my community because I'm part of the community. I have first-hand experience and I fully understand my blackness in my black body as a black woman. He can't. But yet, you've decided to give him the platform and the license and licenses and the courage and the confidence to talk on the things he talks. It's wrong. It's actually wrong. And all you black women that support him doing this, it is wrong. Because when he crosses the line, it's people like me that you're going to expect to go check him because I've got a platform to do it. You won't check him, but you want me to do it. I'm not going to check him. I'm not doing it. When he disrespects us, I'm not going to check him. I'm going to come on here and say, I told you so. This is the check-in. Do you understand? And this goes to every single person who purports to be an ally. Your ally needs to be something I can cash. I need to be able to cash in your allyship for the benefit of black women. Black women need to be able to cash in your allyship. Otherwise, it's just a check that has bounced. Facts. Jessie J thought she could speak on and disrespect a black woman. Do you know why? Because you guys have given her the license to do it like a brother. What brother? Who's your brother? Jessie J gives me, I grew up in London, I've got black friends. That's what she gives me. She gives me that energy. That's the energy she gives me. So be sure to act Jessie J. Because Jessie J, maybe you don't understand your behavior. I've explained your behavior to you. Yeah? And I don't give a shit if you say it's not that deep. It was deep enough for you to write a 4-page letter here. We are bored. What we need you to do is take accountability for your actions, for the things that you say. At the end of the day, Nicki Minaj corrected you, but you needed her to pander to you. You needed her to bend. You needed her to be accommodating to whatever feelings it is that you had. I thought I'd run a competition. I was so excited. Okay, great. So in your excitement, where was the respect? Because I wasn't seeing it here. Why do white women always remind, and the person says Nikki, but remind black women how nice and supportive they've been towards us? Why? What's the essence of it? Think about it. Why do they remind? It's like someone saying, for example, I've always supported black women. I'm an ally. I've always spoken on this. Why do they have to remind us of that? Why do you think? Like, think about it for a minute. Why? Listen, if you're doing what needs to be done and you're doing it from a place of allyship, you don't have to remind us. We will thank you. We will remember you, and we'll tell you all the great things that you've done. Let somebody else testify of all the great things you've done. Why have you got to remind us? Why? Because you want us to remember the position we were in. You want us to remember that we needed you, or your support was needed, Abby. Listen, I'm over it. I'm so over it. But I just wanted to talk about it here because I felt like, you know what, it needs to come to podcast. And also as well, my fellow black queen was like, Toya, you know this needs to come to the podcast, didn't it? And I was like, yeah, of course I know. I know it does. But it's the fact that it does that pisses me off. But here we are. So anybody that you feel that needs to hear this episode, please forward it to them, at them, anonymously, send it to them, however you want to do. But black women, us black women, deserve to stand in our greatness without constantly being reminded of the struggle of how we got here, or the support you rendered, or anything that you rendered. Sometimes as black women, we just want to celebrate because we know where we have come from. We know the fire we have walked through. I'm going to leave it there, okay? So next week's episode is a very, very special episode because I'm dedicating it to a black queen. Do you remember I had a dilemma episode recently? It was released on the 15th of June. Toya Talks, I Need Your Help. Less than 6 hours after my performance review, my role has been advertised. Do you remember that dilemma? If not, can I ask you to go and re-listen to the episode? And then there was a follow-up episode on the 22nd of June called Under Construction. And I do talk a little bit about our black sister who was going through something in the world of work. Anyway, I gave you... So the dilemma was in the dilemma episode, and then she gave us an update. I now have the conclusion. I feel so grateful that this black queen remembered us and said, you know what, I need to give Toya an update for the podcast listeners. She gave me a succinct update. And I'm telling you, next week's episode is an episode not to be missed. So please, if you're listening to this episode for the first time, if you are a regular listener of this podcast, I'm just pleading with you. Go and listen. Maybe wait until like the weekend, so close to Tuesday, so you can still recall the dilemma. So the dilemma episode is on the 15th of June, and it's called Toya Talks, I Need Your Help. Less than 6 hours after my performance review, my role has been advertised. And then I need you to listen to the episode Under Construction, which was after that episode. Please, I'm asking you, go and listen, because the conclusion to this dilemma, let me just leave you with this. Winner, 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 winner. We black women are winners. Come again now. Winner, 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 winner. Hey, we black women are winners. Winner, 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 winner. We black women are winners. That's all I'm going to say. I'll see you next week for a brand new episode of the Toya Talks podcast. And next week's episode is not to be missed. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you want to follow me on social media, as I've said previously, I'm very active on my personal Instagram page, Toya_Washington. We have the Toya Talks Instagram page, Toya_Talks. Of course, you know we have Twitter, Toya_W with the hashtag Toya Talks Podcast or Toya Talks. Also, as well, you guys know, you can find me where Toya Talks Podcast was birthed. The platform was birthed on Snapchat, which is Toya Washington, all in one word. Of course, follow me on Clubhouse, Toya Washington, or we have a house on Clubhouse called Toya Talks. If you have a work-related or life-related dilemma and you need me and us here to talk about it, to give you a solution, suggested solution, please email hello@toyatalks.com. If you work for an organization and you know that they need somebody like myself to come into their workplace to discuss racial equality, diversity, micro and macroaggressions, racial discrimination, listen, go onto my website, www.toyatalks.com, for all the information how to get hold of me. Also as well, if you're interested in any of the masterclasses, the CV masterclass, interview masterclass, negotiation masterclass, mother and daughter masterclass, and the redundancy masterclass, make sure you go into toyatalks.com. Those masterclasses are gold. Literally, they're worth their weight in gold. They're amazing. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to provide you with those tools to start with. There's many more masterclasses to come. Please stay tuned. So I'm going to leave it there. If you are somebody who loves to share, because that's what we're about here in the Toya Talks podcast, please share the podcast. Please share this episode or to anybody you think that can benefit from the Toya Talks platform. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to see you next week. Take care of yourselves and each other. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.